Celtic Badass of the Week showcases a person of Celtic heritage each week. Those who exemplify the give no shit attitude and come out on top. They may come from our past or our present, but rest assured they come from all walks of life and legend. They are men, women, even old ladies and pirate queens. Now you don't have to be a muscled up Celt in a fur kilt swinging a mighty sword. You can just be a 4'11" Welsh woman and suffragette who knows jujitsu. Now most of these badasses are all too real, and while some of these are only legend, they're badass legends. The only prerequisite is Celtic blood and badassedness. This week's Celtic badass is Paddy Mayne. He's quoted as saying, when you enter a room full of the enemy, kill the first one that moves. Because, well, he has started to think and therefore is dangerous. Robert Blair, Paddy Mayne. His story starts with the grizzled, jaded, ludicrously muscular hero sits alone in a dark, rat-infested cell with no hope of escape and only his own violent angst to keep him company. When suddenly a light appears at the door and an old friend shows up with a double-edged proposition. Sit there and rot to death like a chump, or undertake a mega dangerous mission so unsurvivable and ultra-violent that the only way you're coming home is in a body bag. In this case of Major Mayne, a 6'2", 200-pound British Commando with thirst for violence rivaled only by his thirst for Guinness, rotting in a cell in Egypt awaiting court-martial wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Sure, if it wasn't for an incident in which he coldcocked a superior officer and then chased him out of the officer's mess while swinging a bayonet and unleashing an epic stream of profanity so withering that it caused the guy's mother to spontaneously burst into tears 3,000 miles away. But a little bit of kernel punching should be enough to keep him from tearing Nazis in half, with his fists, of course. This hadn't been the Ulsterman's first run-in with authority ever, but a few months before the attempted stabbing of a superior asshole, Mayne had gotten some less than stellar service from a bartender, and instead of just stiffing the dude on the tip, he grabbed the guy by the throat, dragged him into the middle of a crowded nightclub, and made the guy dance while emptying his revolver around the guy's feet. But it was certainly looking like this would be the one that was going to send Paddy Mayne packing back home to Northern Ireland with a dishonorable discharge, criminal record probably, and probably, definitely, unhealthy amount of pent-up rage. That is, until the intrepid Colonel Captain Sir David Stirling showed up at Mayne's prison cell with an inescapable badass Dirty Dozen style offer. I can get the charges dropped for you, old boy, but you only have to agree to serve as my second command in a dangerous as hell new covert unit I'm developing. The mission? Well, leading a small elite squad of 8 to 10 battle-hardened soldiers on foot through the Sahara Desert, infiltrating deep into German lines, messing shit up, and hopefully getting back to base before Jerry gets his act together and chops you into ground beef with an assortment of various machine guns. The unit, simply known as L Detachment, though today we know it by a different name, the British Special Air Service, the SAS. Now it was Paddy Mayne's job to lead small, fast-moving teams of hard-hitting demolitions experts through the freaking Sahara, brave 130 degrees temperatures during the day, sub-zero temperatures at night, climb 100-foot high dunes, endured bugs and sandstorms and flash floods, dehydration, enough sand in the underwear to build a freaking award-winning sandcastle in your tidy whities. Then they were to infiltrate Rommel's airfields and do battle with a superior force without any hope of reinforcement or rescue. The task was super freaking dangerous. On the SAS's first mission, 6 teams of 10 men parachuted into a desert storm in the middle of the night, and only a third of the men ended up escaping with their lives. But that didn't deter Mayne from kicking ass. This guy was the 1936 Irish University's heavyweight boxing champion and a man who made a name for himself playing international rugby tournaments for the British and Irish national teams. Now he wasn't about to back down just because he lost 40 or 60 soldiers on his first mission, no matter how much it sounded like it might have been a good idea. Now, realizing that skydiving in the sandstorms is insane, Mayne and Stirling changed their tactic and started taking open-top jeeps behind enemy lines, approaching German installations on foot in the middle of the night, sabotaging all the aircraft they could find, and then escaping back to their vehicles and hauling ass through the sands, road rally style. Now, when this proved to be super successful and the Germans and Italians stepped up their defenses, the SAS, they started equipping their vehicles with twin-linked Vickers machine guns and making their raids even more balls-to-the-wall fun. Riding a squadron of these machine gun cars in formation right onto the fucking enemy airstrip in broad daylight, guns blazing, shooting up the planes on the runway, and hauling ass out of there while the fascist ground crew tries to figure out what the hell is going on. When it came to being awesome at desert-style combat, the hard-drinking, hard-fighting Paddy Mayne realized he was the shit. Like, on one mission, this guy crawled through barbed wire, personally destroyed 24 German fighter planes with thermite grenades, then kicked in the door to the pilot's rec room, hosed the entire place down with a Tommy gun, till all that was left was dead bodies and half-eaten lasagna. Now, while expressionlessly walking away from the fiery carnage with, in a super slow motion, motion picture kind of way where he doesn't look back and everything blows up behind him and he's all badass looking. Well, Mayne happened to find one ME-109 that somehow hadn't been blown to shit. So realizing that, he was out of handheld explosives and he couldn't fly, the big Irishman just casually walked over to the aircraft, ripped the control panel out of the cockpit with his bare hands, and walked into the desert holding it like it was a severed head of a slain enemy. And I'm not making that up because, somebody wrote about that. This is seriously a thing that happened in real life. Now, a week later, Mayne drove his army jeep into a different airfield, personally destroyed another 27 fighters, giving him 51 aircraft kills in 2 days. If he'd have been in a Spitfire, he'd have been an ace 10 times over by now. By the time the SAS was done, they'd leveled over 100 enemy aircraft. Now, after doing this for a few years and battering the German and Italian war machine from deep behind enemy lines, Colonel Sterling ended up getting captured during a raid, and Paddy Mayne took over as commander of the 1st SAS Regiment. He folded that into the Special Boat Service to form the Special Raiding Squadron, and as the leader of the SRS, Mayne undertook a shitload of insanely dangerous missions to spearhead the Allied landings on Sicily and mainland Italy in 1943. On one raid, Mayne and his team hit the beach, climbed up a sheer cliff face in the middle of the night, attacked an Italian coastal defense, captured 700 soldiers, destroyed all their artillery, drank all their best wine, only to be sitting there, half drunk, half asleep, when the Allied forces showed up to find out why is everything on fire? Why is everything blown up? Another time he went a little less with the sneaky, personally led the SAS and Royal Marines off an assault craft under heavy enemy machine gun fire, captured the town of Tumoli, and held out for 3 days against an intense series of counterattacks by elite German infantry units. Now, once Italy was under control, Mayne continued his streak of being involved at the center of every military operation in the Western theater. He did that by parachuting into France to sabotage rail networks, coordinate missions with the French resistance, and destroy German communications and transportation lines so that the Nazis wouldn't be able to bring reinforcements, to the Normandy coast because we were fixing to have an invasion. Now, Mayne's commander had initially told the gung-ho lieutenant colonel he was way too high of a rank to be doing that kind of stuff. But Mayne, he just told him to F off and went ahead and did it anyway. He promised him he wasn't going to be any direct fire actions, but he lied. A few months later, Mayne single-handedly captured the town of Oldenburg, armed with only a jeep and a Bren gun. Now, Paddy, he had been leading one SAS ahead to clear a path for the Canadian 4th Armored Division when he heard reports that the lead vehicles in the convoy had been ambushed. Mayne hauled his ass to the front lines to find the Germans had cut off the element of his force and had him surrounded, outnumbered, pinned down, and pretty much screwed. Mayne immediately jumped out of the jeep, ran into the closest house, cleared it with his .45, grabbed a Bren gun off a dead dude, and sprinted back to his jeep. He jumped in, ordered a guy to man the Vickers on the back of the jeep, and then hauled ass right into the middle of the melee, blowing through the Germans. Paddy effing Mayne held the wheel with one hand, rested the Bren gun on the dash so he could shoot and drive at the same time. When he reached the cut-off section of his unit, Mayne had his gunner covered while he loaded up the wounded, and they hauled ass out of there. Now, They regrouped, and his unit personally led an attack that flanked the German defenders, wiped out their entire force, and captured the town. After a long and glorious career of kicking the shit out of Nazis everywhere he could find, anyway, somehow managing to survive through the most hellaciously brutal environments and missions the Second World War could throw at him, Mayne finally retired from the SAS in 1945 and took up an even more dangerous career. He became a chicken farmer. He remains the only person in British history to receive the Distinguished Service Order 4 times. Dude, that's badass.